Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are checking out another brand new Collecta 2023 release, and this one is really exciting because this is a brand new species to enter my collection, which is actually already the second one in this year's lineup from Collecta that I've reviewed, which is also a brand new species to my collection, as we had the Coolosuchus first. We've now got the Ceratosuchops, and this one is super cool, and it's actually got a really beautiful paint job. I don't know if I just didn't pay enough attention to the original promotional images for this one or what, but I didn't realize that the paint job was quite so appealing looking, quite so flashy but naturalistic on this. But again, this is a really exciting release as it's a brand new species, not only for me but many people to enter into their collection. So let's jump to a closer look at it right now. So, beginning up here at the head sculpt of the Ceratosuchops, you can see again something that we saw on the last few figures from Collecta. We've got a nice dark wash present on this one as well, and yet again I think it adds a nice element of realism to the figure, and they've applied it in a really nice way where it doesn't look out of place, it doesn't look overbearing even in the slightest bit. It just does its job perfectly by highlighting all of the texturing to the skin and the detailing throughout the figure. But we have a really nice looking head sculpt up here with some really fine texturing to the face, and you also have some nice looking paintwork again with a grayish tone of color for the face and that dark wash highlighting all of the detail. You can see a lot of the texturing to the skin and everything is very fine in the face of this one. Like, you don't see the scales or anything quite as obvious as you do on many other Collecta figures, but it definitely is there. The eyes are painted yet again with a nice glossy black. I believe that's how all of the eyes so far have been painted on these Collecta figures, and they really do a very good job when it comes to painting the eyes of their figures in that kind of a way with that nice blackish tone, because it always looks so lifelike and realistic, and they absolutely have succeeded in doing that yet again with this Ceratosuchops. And then up here on the top you can see we have kind of like a crest, and it's painted with an orangish tone, but it's also given like a kind of like a gloss coat. You can see it's shining right there, so it has a really nice glossy look to it that really makes that area stand out, and that orangish tone just adds a nice flashiness to that area of the head. We're losing focus on it, to the head of the Ceratosuchops. We do have an articulated jaw on the figure. You can see it opens quite nicely. We've got the skin there, kind of the skin flap there of the inside of the mouth. We also have a nice light tone for the inside of the mouth, and when I initially had taken a look inside the mouth of this figure, it didn't look like there was a tongue. Oh man, the camera is absolutely not focusing on this, but there is actually a tongue present. If my camera would even give me just the slightest bit of a chance to show it off, it is in there. It's just a little bit harder to see. Really does not want me to show that off for some reason. My camera just can't figure out how to focus on it. You can see the teeth are all sculpted kind of together rather than independently, and they're painted pretty nicely for the most part, but you can see like the teeth on the inside of the mouth are not really painted, honestly. Like, you can see, if my camera again absolutely hates focusing on the lower jaw, but you can see that the teeth on the inside of the mouth don't really have any paintwork on them, but they're really small teeth, so I guess I can kind of understand why they would have gone that route. Let's see, the teeth on the inside of the mouth on the upper side, though, that also doesn't have any paintwork for the inside of the mouth, only on the outside, which is a little strange. Now, these teeth are a bit larger than what we see on the lower jaw, so I would have expected paintwork up there, but mine, unfortunately, does not have paintwork in that area. However, that articulated jaw does work really nicely, which is a plus. You can also start to see some kind of black splotches and stuff as you move along here through the face leading back, as we have that nice light gray and then that black splotchiness. You also see kind of like a hint of like a greenish tone, like almost like a light greenish gray appearing here on the top of the figure. It comes in really smooth. The transition into that is super smooth. As you lead down here to the underside of the throat, you kind of see like a little bit of hanging skin here. You also see that's painted with a pinkish tone of color, which I also really like. I think that stands out very nicely in that area of the figure. And you can see it transition away as we lead down to a nice light gray here for the underside. The throat as well continues to run down here along the underside of the figure. You can see some nice wrinkling and creasing and stuff right there in the neck region. As you continue to move down, you continue to have those kind of splotchy black spots and stripes, and they do completely turn into a striping here running down from the back, but you also again have the splotchy kind of spots and stuff on the side showing up randomly as well. As you continue to move down, though, you see we have some really nice looking scale detail for the majority of the figure. We also start to pick up a line of ridges here running along the back of the dinosaur. As you lead down, you can see some nice wrinkling here at the base of the arm, and as you lead down into the hands, you can see the hands are held in a nice naturalistic position. You've also got some wrinkling there in the joint of the elbow, and it darkens very smoothly to a black or a dark gray for the hands. The nails are painted with kind of like a nice, like creamy color, and you can see they are a little bit big and bulky, but you definitely wouldn't want kids hurting themselves with this figure, so I can understand why it would have that appearance to the nails. But they look really good. The hand sculpts look really good, and the paintwork is really nice and precise on the nails for the figure. As you lead up here, you can kind of see some skin wrinkling and stuff right there in the stomach region. You continue to see how that darker wash really highlights all of the scale detail very, very nicely. They've definitely done a great job of making all of the skin texture on this pop in a beautiful, beautiful way. You continue to see the nice striping leading down, and it's really nicely applied. Like, that is about as smooth of a striping as you're going to see when it comes to the application of the paint. You can see a little more kind of like skin wrinkling and stuff back here behind the thigh, a little muscle definition as you move down the thigh, as well as a bulging calf muscle right there. The kneecap is present, and we also have some nice scale detail running down the front of the thigh, down through the knee, into the shin. And then you can see again a really smooth transition as you move down into the foot sculpt, back to that dark grayish tone. We've got a nice bird-like foot sculpt for the dinosaur with some nice scoots down the toes. The nails are again painted in the same tone of color as we saw on the hands, and you can also see over there is a dew claw present, and it is painted. There you go, you can see it a little bit better right there. But as you lead up here toward the tail, you can again see more of that nice looking texturing of the skin, and you can just see right here as you move down the transition between colors and how smooth it is, as we have that kind of like greenish gray, that light grayish tone down to this gray, and then down to the light gray for the underside, and all of those transitions are really natural. As you lead out, you can see the tail kind of heads upward and then curves down toward the tip. You can see that the stripes continue to run the course of the tail, but they disappear here. The last little section of the tail doesn't have any striping. We continue to have those ridges, though, running along the back of the dinosaur. The legs are in a slightly different position, but for the most part, it looks like the dinosaur is just kind of stopped and it's kind of looking around. Maybe surveying the landscape, maybe looking for a drink, maybe looking for something to eat, maybe just curious as to what's going on, but it definitely appears to be kind of standing still at this point in time. So that means we're not really going to see too much difference over here compared to what we just saw on the initial side, except for the right leg is slightly more forward than the left. The arms are in pretty much the same position, but we can kind of see a slight difference when it comes to the positioning of the arm from the elbow down. It's just ever so slightly forward compared to the opposing side. You can see the skin wrinkles and stuff a little bit more, I think, over here. Yeah, you don't have them so much there because this leg is slightly more forward, so it's kind of wrinkling the skin right there. Again, the paintwork is really nicely done on this side as well, with those really nice light tones. I actually love the coloration of this figure. Like, I just really can't get over how much I like the paint job of this one and the overall color scheme. It's so simple, but it just looks so good on the figure. It really, really pops overall. And again, the same style of sculpt for the tail. There's no big curve or anything at all going on left or right, just the curve downward. So overall, that is an absolutely gorgeous looking figure. And of course, it is a Ceratosuchops, which I've never had the pleasure of adding to my collection before, so that as well is extremely exciting, especially to have one so nice looking. Another plus for this figure is it has really good balance. Of course, the last two figures we had taken a look at were quadrupedal, so this one being bipedal, you often wonder how good it'll stand, but you can see, of course, if I smack it, it's going to fall over, but just nudging it there, like, it's balanced really nicely. Definitely stands really well. But for a length, you're looking at about 9.5 inches or around 24 centimeters. And then for a height, I guess the highest point would be the tail or maybe the hip region. You're looking at just shy of 3 inches or around 7.5 centimeters, maybe approaching 8, but not quite there. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Clovisaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Ceratosuchops. And again, you can see that this one is a member of the Age of Dinosaurs line, I believe. It's not a deluxe figure or anything like that. So it has that smaller size range that you would honestly expect it to have. But even still, for being an Age of Dinosaurs figure, I think it's a little bit bigger than I was expecting it to be. I would say it's a good medium-sized figure. For another comparison, here is the recently reviewed Triceratops, the confronting Triceratops from the 2023 lineup of Collecta as well, since I had it here next to me. Figured it wouldn't be a bad idea to bring this one in for a comparison. But for another comparison, we've got ourselves the Age of Dinosaurs smaller swimming Spinosaurus. So you can definitely see that this version here is like pretty similar in size to the Ceratosuchops. So if you happen to have that Spinosaurus, the swimming version, then you'll definitely have a very good idea of the size of this Ceratosuchops. And I also love to bring this figure in all the time when it comes to reviews with a Collecta release because it's their Dimetrodon. It's one of my all-time favorites from Collecta, so one that I felt like would be a fun one to bring in for another comparison. And then for another comparison here, we have the Rugops from Collecta, which is obviously a much older figure, but it's also part of the Age of Dinosaurs line, and this shows you that this Ceratosuchops is a bit larger than your average sort of Age of Dinosaurs line theropod. For another comparison, and with the help of our Ceratosuchops, we're getting a look at the Proceratosaurus here from Collecta next to the Ceratosuchops. And again, you can see that this figure is a bit larger, and obviously it's helping it stand because it doesn't want to stand currently, and the Ceratosuchops is just taking a bite out of the tail of our Proceratosaurus. But for another comparison, and this is a comparison that I feel like is definitely a good one because it's a very, very popular figure from Collecta. We have the Age of Dinosaurs version of their feathered Tyrannosaurus Rex next to the Ceratosuchops, and they are a very similar size this time around. So if you do have that Rex, you really will have a great idea of the size of this Ceratosuchops. And then for one final comparison, we have, again, from the Age of Dinosaurs line, we've got the Deinonychus here next to this new Ceratosuchops. So hopefully you will have had at least one of these figures to give you a pretty good idea of the fact that this is still a pretty sizable figure. Not huge, but a decent medium size range for this release. So this brand new 2023 Ceratosuchops from Collecta is definitely one of the nicest figures that are releasing this year, not just from Collecta. Like overall, I think they did a phenomenal job on this one because the sculpt is really well done. Of course, it's very nice, very highly detailed overall, but I like the really kind of almost neutral positioning of this one. It's not often that you kind of get that sort of a pose from a Collecta release. They normally kind of try to give their dinosaurs a little bit more movement, a little bit more of like, not necessarily an action scene, but just something more going on. So it is nice to have something like this where they don't really do that. And obviously, it is still, of course, given life. It's got a little bit of movement. There's some difference between the arms, difference between the legs, and you have the option to articulate the jaw. But I like the fact that it's just sort of standing there, looking around. It actually almost looks, because it has a slight lean forward, it almost looks like maybe it's feasting on something, and that's kind of crouching down, maybe preparing to take its next bite. Or maybe it's up on a ledge and it's just trying to kind of get a view of the area. I really don't know, but I do really quite like the pose of this one. I like how simplistic the pose is, but overall it looks really good. And speaking of simplistic, again, the paint job is really quite simple. The way that they had come up with this, they basically just gave it a few different lighter tones of color and that nice dark striping. And with the lighter tones of color and that darker striping playing off of each other, it really, really pops on the figure. Like, it stands out very, very nicely, and is probably one of my favorite paint schemes for the entire 2023 year from Collecta. And not to mention that the actual application of the paint is really well done. The stripes look great throughout. Sometimes when you get striped dinosaurs like that, the stripes themselves can look like paint more so than body color, whereas this really looks like body color the whole way through. And they've applied a nice, again, dark wash like they've done with the last few figures we've reviewed, where it highlights the detailing in absolutely perfect fashion and just adds a little more depth and realism to the paint job. A really nice release from Collecta for the 2023 year, whether it's the sculpt, the paint, the size, the pose, or just simply the fact that it's a Ceratosuchops. It's a win all around. So if you are interested in this, I believe this one as well should be coming into stock when it comes to different retailers like Everything Dinosaur very, very soon. I believe sometime this month, maybe early next month. So make sure you pick this up when it does come into stock because it, in my opinion, is a must-have. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.